The NYPD cleared out protesters who were camping outside of City Hall. The police commissioner said there were about 40 or 50 people on site when they moved in to clear it out. Arrests were made, but there were no injuries and almost no violence. NTD's Melina Weiskup has the story.
It looks like it's the end of New York City protesters occupying City Hall. Workers have been out here since about 8 a.m. this morning, washing and painting over graffiti that has piled up during this month-long protest. The aftermath of several hundred shielded police officers moving in to recover City Hall Park at around 3:40 a.m.
I think that should have never happened. I'm just glad they're going, and they're cleaning up.
The police commissioner said they gave protesters a warning beforehand.
If you leave voluntarily, no charge.
And that a number of people did leave after the warning, but others weren't as willing. At least 7 were arrested during the process. 1 for throwing a brick at an officer. The other 6 arrested for absent warrants. The NYPD and mayor have been planning the breakup for weeks, but said they held off taking action to allow people to exercise their rights.
People have the right to protest.
But the Occupy City Hall makes New Yorkers feel uneasy about the fact that this could be allowed to happen in their home city.
When I know that my fellow New Yorkers, and God knows who else is here, can come and just take over a park. It makes me feel very uncomfortable because I live in the Bronx, and right now where we live, shootings are up.
Not to mention the inconvenience it cost him, since he couldn't access the elevator at all during the protest and still can't now as they clean up.
It was an inconvenience. The elderly, the people who use wheelchairs, they couldn't use the elevator to get outside.
The cleanup is expected to take several weeks, and the area will be locked down completely until it's clean. Reporting from New York, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
This cleanup in New York comes after President Trump repeatedly said he intends to send federal officers to restore order in cities that are out of control. But New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said he won't allow federal officers to come into the city. And in upstate New York, the desire for more space has sent real estate sales outside the 5 boroughs booming.
New Yorkers anxious about enduring another pandemic in the crowds and small apartments of New York City are feeling a boom in home sales and rentals upstate. Real estate brokers and agents describe a booming market recently since many are now able to work from home. Anil and Joyce Lilly belong to the group of house hunters that are working remotely. They just bought a house an hour north in the Hudson Valley. That way, if the outbreak roars back into the city, they won't be sheltering in their Bronx apartment.
I think the pandemic really caused the glue to hold the commitment we had to Manhattan to fall away.
Although many New Yorkers are taking similar steps, New York City is in no danger of hollowing out anytime soon. The upstate wave looks more like a trickle in a city of over 8 million, with new homes in the region ranging from $200,000 to more than $1 million. They're an escape hatch many cannot afford. But the spike in sales and long-term rentals suggests New Yorkers who endured the worst of the pandemic see the city as less hospitable. Agents say people are now fighting bidding wars over homes that have been sitting on the market for a long time before the pandemic, and new listings are being snapped up fast by buyers with cash.
The United States Commission on International Religious Freedom held a hearing about the Chinese regime's use of technology to oppress religious groups. They say China has created a surveillance state on a scale never seen before.
The United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, or USCIRF, held a virtual hearing about technological surveillance of religion in China. USCIRF says the Chinese Communist Party has created an Orwellian surveillance state with an unmatched ability to gather information about its citizens. According to the Commission, the CCP has installed hundreds of millions of surveillance cameras across the country, some even inside churches. It's done to track the movements of Uyghurs and Tibetans using facial and voice recognition. But one panel member says the 2 minorities aren't the only ones falling under the party's surveillance. Panelist Chris Mazerel says although Tibet and the Xinjiang are the most extreme examples, the CCP has also relied on digital surveillance to target Christians as well as spiritual movements like Falun Gong. Falun Gong, also called Falun Dafa, is a spiritual meditation practice based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. The Chinese regime brutally persecutes those who practice it. Likewise, the CCP also monitors the Twitter-like WeChat app, as well as other social media platforms for religious content. One panel member noted that numerous Tibetans have been arrested or detained for sharing photos of spiritual Tibetan leader, the Dalai Lama. But he added that the CCP's online censorship doesn't only affect people living in China.
For companies like WeChat and TikTok that are expanding their censorship and surveillance beyond China's borders, helping Beijing erode global human rights standards.
Recently, the House voted to ban Chinese video sharing app TikTok on federal devices. The move came amid fears that data collected by the app and sent to the Chinese regime could be used in a cyber attack against the U.S.
An Arizona senator is looking to ban federal funds from being used to buy products from companies backed by the Chinese regime. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that proposal and others from senators who want the U.S. to be less dependent on communist China.
Republican Arizona Senator Martha McSally introduced two bills that would ban federal funds from being used to buy Chinese Communist Party-type products like subway trains. An increasing concern in Washington is U.S. infrastructure built with Chinese technology that puts national security at risk. Under China's law, Chinese companies must hand over collected data, regardless of where it's collected, to the regime if it asks for it. McSally expressed concerns during a committee hearing over how lenient the U.S. can be about trading with China.
We have China bidding for public transportation bids in major American cities. We have China supplying drones to local law enforcement and other entanglements on the stock market with double standards and not having the same kind of oversight.
But senators are looking to take things a step further. Republican Senator Tom Cotton is also considering the idea of banning certain Chinese companies like Huawei, China Mobile, and others from operating in the U.S. President Trump's former deputy assistant for national security says this absolutely should happen.
Absolutely. These are companies that are state-owned enterprises. They are fronts for the Chinese military. Not only should we bar them from operating in the United States, lobbyists who represent them in Washington should have to explain that.
Democratic Senator Menendez says he's opposed to the idea of any further trade deals with China and instead wants the U.S. to invest in its own infrastructure to better compete with China. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
As powerful flooding continues to plague southern China, concerns are rising that the country's famous Three Gorges Dam could collapse. But some Chinese experts have dismissed the claims, with one of them adding that even an atomic bomb couldn't destroy the massive structure. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
Concerns are rising over whether the Three Gorges Dam could collapse amid China's massive flooding, but Chinese experts are quick to refute. In a state media interview, one expert said even an atomic bomb couldn't entirely destroy the dam, adding that it would only blow a hole in it. Another expert said water won't erode the dam, as it's made of concrete and only gets stronger with time. But one of the most prominent experts on the dam says otherwise. Hydrologist Wang Wei Luo wrote that when air interacts with concrete, a chemical process called carbonation happens. That means that concrete will gradually erode as a result. Wang has been sounding the alarm about the dam's stability for the past decade. He says it was poorly constructed. China started building the dam in 1994. 4 years later, the country saw some of its worst flooding in recent decades. Concerned about the dam's quality, China's then premier hired Western experts to inspect the structure. One of them said the steel bar welding of the dam wasn't up to standard, but the comment upset the Chinese workers, who complained that the Western experts' criticism was a form of racial discrimination. Yet, the criticism came too late.
The steel bar welding and cement pouring of the gorge's left bank is all complete. They can't redo it.
Wang explained the dam's construction team didn't include a separate group for quality inspection. The team that designed the dam did it themselves. Last Saturday, after the dam saw its highest level of flooding yet this year, Chinese authorities admitted the dam has moved, leaked, and distorted. The reports published by Chinese media didn't give specific numbers, instead stressing that all major parameters are within normal range. In 2002, another report revealed that the dam had many cracks, including some of them large enough to be the width of an adult's hand. A construction worker told the reporter that the cracks emerged because some construction materials, including the base of the dam, had problems. One of the dam's construction team leaders later responded saying it's impossible to avoid cracks, but that those on the Three Gorges Dam are non-threatening. Juliet Song, NTD News.